Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today for our Small Business Development Workshop, Benefits of Employing Youth, Tips for Attracting and Retaining a Diverse Work Group of Youth and Young Adults. The Chamber is very grateful to provide this offering free of charge to our Chamber members because of the generosity of our series sponsor, Lake Superior College. But without further ado, I have the pleasure of introducing two speakers for you today. First, we'll hear from Hannah Grunzke, who is a youth career counselor for the City of Duluth's Workforce Development. And then later on in this session, we will hear from Betsy Hill, Workforce Development Technician and Employer Navigator, also for the Duluth Workforce Development. But you're probably here because the labor force is really tight right now. So Hannah and Betsy will provide some strategies to recruit and retain a group of youth and young adults, not only to boost your staff, but also provide fresh perspectives to your business, among other benefits. So this is intended to be an interactive session. Please stay with us and ask questions along the way. There will be time for Q&A at the end. So if you don't want to kind of jump in during, feel free to keep those questions for the end and we will get to you. So Hannah, thank you so much for being here. You're welcome to take it away.
For those that just jumped on, I have a little beep beep noise that's happening on my computer and I can't get it to go away. So I'm just gonna pretend it's not there, over the top of it. So now I hit share screen, Chris, and my PowerPoint will pop up for you.
Yes, you can go ahead and share it.
All right. How's that? Betsy, does that look right from your side? Yeah, okay. All right, so thanks for having me. My name is Hannah. I am going to minimize your pictures so I can see my notes. I'm a youth career counselor with the City of Duluth, and I work in the Yes Duluth program, Youth Employment Services, within the Duluth Workforce Development Department. A quick overview of the Yes Duluth program. We support eligible at-risk or underserved youth ages 14 to 24 in their employment and education. We assist with secondary, post-secondary, and alternative education, including GED, as well as work readiness, skill building, and career pathways exploration. I help coordinate what we call the work experience component of the Yes Duluth program, which provides participants with short-term paid employment opportunities in a community setting. Our program subsidizes those wages for the youth while coordinating a mentorship approach for the participants as they learn and practice job skills. One of my professional goals is increasing diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workforce through educating employers on aspects of working with underserved youth and young adults. And we are always looking to build and strengthen partnerships with employer mentors. Which brings me here, and today's small business development topic is the benefit of employing youth, tips for attracting and retaining a diverse work group of adults.
Hannah, you might want to just hit from beginning. I think we're seeing your notes page as well.
Oh no! You're seeing the screen with the black on it and the little pictures?
Yeah, we see your notes. So we're at slideshow. If you want to hit maybe from beginning.
I did. Hold on. I'm going to start the slideshow over. Thank you, Betsy, for telling me that. What do you see now?
Same thing. It might also be, if you have dual monitors, it might be presenting from on the same screen.
It's presenting from, so hang on one second. Ta-da! Did I do it? Perfect. Okay. All right. I cannot believe I figured that out. I gotta say. Well, now if okay, I'm sorry. I'm not very techy. Are we on the second slide? The goal slide? Okay. All right, here I go. So now I have to look up at my notes page, so my face won't be pointed at the camera, but that's fine. All right, so our goal, the goal for the presentation is to identify concrete strategies to recruit, hire, onboard, and retain a diverse team of youth and young adults. Quick outline. We're going to review labor market information related to youth in Duluth, discuss the intersection between diversity, equity, and inclusion working with young people, look at common themes from business professionals regarding benefits of hiring youth, and also common themes from Gen Z blogs and articles regarding what Gen Z wants and expects in the workplace, and then review specific tips for recruitment, hiring, onboarding, and retention of young employees. Then opening it up for discussion. In my work, I have a lot of opportunity to hear from young people and from educators and youth serving staff and other mentors, but I have less opportunity to hear from employers outside of the youth serving sector. So I'm interested in learning through your experience in hiring and working with young people, what has gone well, what have the struggles been, and what can you see changing to on the presentation. That'll wrap up my portion, and then my colleague Betsy Hill will close out our time by reviewing some of our employer resources. Betsy's also going to keep an eye on the chat if there's questions and comments that come up. And when I did my run through, I ran short, so there is time for discussion questions. Yeah. All right. Labor market information. This is data specific to youth in Duluth, provided to us by Carson Barecki, who is Deed's Northeast Regional Analyst. The data is specific to the Duluth metro area, which includes St. Louis County, Carleton County, and Douglas County. 16 to 24-year-olds account for 16.2% of our population eligible to be in the workforce in the Duluth metro. This equals about 39,000 eligible workers. Their labor force participation rate is 66%, which is 6% higher than the overall participation rate. The total number of hours worked across age groups fell between 2012 and 2021, but it did increase for young people. The unemployment rate for young people is 3 to 5% higher than unemployment across all age groups. And the number of jobs held by people of color has increased by 79%. As stated by Carson, employment growth has been and will continue to be driven by workers of color. So in my work, I've developed fact sheets for both tips for hiring young people and also changes that can lead to increased diversity, equity, and inclusion in your work group. And there is a strong intersection between these two topics that I want to highlight. And we have some related employer resources to share. When we're looking at employing young adults, Gen Z cares about equity and inclusion. They want to know what employers are doing about it. Gen Z is drawn to jobs and companies that align with their personal values and beliefs. They want work that is meaningful and has a positive impact on others. And hearing from individuals in this generation, transparency is extremely important. They want to know how their company treats environmental and social issues directly from management. Going beyond race and class, over 20% of Gen Z adults identify as LGBTQ+ in 2021. That's a national statistic. 15 to 24-year-olds are a more racially diverse population than the total population in our area. Currently, nearly 25% of our K-12 students are part of the BIPOC community. and unemployment rates for those in the BIPOC community are disproportionately high. We're going to look at unemployment data specific to our area. These stats all came from the year 2021. Kind of fine print, but hopefully you can see it. The Bureau of Labor Statistics defines unemployment or unemployed as individuals that do not have a job, have actively looked for work in the prior 4 weeks, and are currently available to work. Across all age groups in Duluth, the 2021 number was 4.7% for the Duluth metro area. Youth ages 16 to 19, 9% unemployment rate, and 20 to 24, 6.8% unemployment. So there's some untapped potential in our area, and we're pretty much on par with the state as a whole on that. We are not on par with the state as a whole when it comes to unemployment by race. For white individuals alone, the unemployment rate is 4.3%, and the greatest disparity on this would be 21.6% for Black or African Americans alone, and this compares to 8.6% across the state. So you can see there are huge disparities for our community specifically and our state on unemployment by race. So I want to put behind us the time where we put the onus of this on the job seeker. And I'll say for my part, when I was first teaching work readiness workshops to youth, and this was only 5 years ago, I was taking kind of a one-sided approach to it. I'm explaining the perspective of the employer. I'm teaching them what employers are looking for, and I'm doing empathy training related to like how to handle frustration with management. And that approach to work readiness training does help, but now my goal is for us to look at it from both sides. For employers that take measures to meet the available workforce where they are at, will help some employers rise above the workforce shortage greater than others. Last slide on this topic. Considering how standards of professionalism favor dominant cultures and may leave valuable groups and individuals behind, I want to give just a couple examples without getting too far into the weeds, but in my past work, I did a lot of interviewing, hiring, and I'm looking back on a few of the practices that we would take to weed people out and how that would favor dominant groups. Just a few. There's digital demands in the application process. Some of our application processes that get kind of complicated that favor those with privilege. When we are looking at really fine details to weed people out, like grammatical differences, where there's like formal dominant speech patterns versus what we would consider informal, and we have this professional instinct to view that as a sign of intelligence versus a lack of intelligence. And one that's tricky to navigate, but an example is like how different cultures perceive or value time. So if someone would come into an interview just like 3 minutes late maybe, but wasn't apologizing profusely for being late, it can be misperceived as like carelessness or being brazen, when really it could be a cultural difference in how they time. So there's a lot of room for learning and a growing number of resources on this topic, including our Employer Champions Initiative. You can explore the Diversity and Inclusion Employer Action Guide at Duluth Workforce Development's Employer Services page. And the PowerPoint here will go out to the group when we're done, and there are links directly embedded into the PowerPoint here. And all are welcome to engage in Duluth Workforce Development Board's Employer Champions Initiative through lunch and learn sessions every other month through the year 2023. The next is Thursday, April 6th, and that topic, for example, is psychological safety. All right, back on track. Common themes. Okay, I poured over articles written by business professionals, largely Harvard Business Review and Forbes magazine has a lot of information, and there were some really strong themes across the articles. There can be cost savings in providing wages and benefits to those just starting out. Young people are known to be eager to learn and build on their future, and a lot of references to their sense of optimism. Gen Z tends to work independently and discover solutions on their own. They're adept at learning new technologies. Not to say they have experience with all the programs that you're using, but they're known to be quick learners for new programs within business. And they celebrate diversity, or celebrate difference and value equity and inclusion. Young people like to take on responsibility and feel like they're going somewhere within a company, and they could be, for example, a really valuable member or even team lead of DEI initiatives. This was one of my favorite parts of the research for this PowerPoint, was reading blogs and articles written by Gen Zers. There were some very strong themes across the board here. So I'll say Gen Z is born between 1997 and 2012. So they'd be age 11 to 26 right now. And according to the World Economic Forum, they will represent 27% of the workforce by the year 2025. Gen Z is known for disillusionment with the establishment and capitalism, and they're looking to those in positions of authority to prove themselves with transparency, flexibility, and follow through. One was quoted as saying, "Demonstrate your investment in my success, flex your management style, and communicate." They value transparency and a two-way dialogue. They want open conversations right up front as well about salary and career progression, opportunity for that. They want to see a clear path to career progression and incentives to stay with their employer. One quote said, "I won't be dedicating my whole life to one company, and I will not hesitate to leave for better opportunities." There was a current statistic from CNBC that said 70% of Gen Zers report that they're considering leaving their job for something better or different. And one of the statistics was as high as 91% of Gen Zers looking elsewhere. They expect a work-life balance and a nurturing work environment. They'll take action if they feel their needs aren't being met. I don't dream of labor. I will take breaks when I need and want to. And one said, "I no longer plan on subscribing to the hustle culture." So in our work, we're seeing Gen Zers approach a job interview like a two-way street. Like, it's no longer about meeting the employer where they're at. It's more like the employer and the employee are assessing each other in a job interview to determine whether the job is a good fit. This is really fine print, but just as a snapshot, this PDF is available on the Workforce Development's Employer Services page, along with a similar resource outlining tips for diversifying your work team. And we'll go through each section now. Starting with recruitment. These are like some sort of concrete tips for that. We kind of developed this largely with the Emerging Workforce Committee, which is a subcommittee to the Duluth Workforce Development Board. Starting with the marketing positions as an entry point for your organization with a clear mention of opportunities for added benefits. And that could be as simple as incentives or perks that may be attractive to young people. Create job postings that are easy to read using plain language. Be sure the teens can easily access and submit the job application online, and that the application is mobile friendly. Most, or I'll say many young people use their phone as their computer, and they have little or no access to a desktop computer, and certainly not a printer. On the other side of that, additionally, I would consider offering a paper application that can be printed or picked up as an option. The goal being to make the process as accessible to as many people as possible. Consider whether your job posting's minimum qualifications could be lifted, such as requiring a diploma or a driver's license when it's not required for the job. Keep the job application short with just the information necessary to determine if applicants are interview worthy. And this is simply because you're competing with so many other people or applicants that you want to make the process less of an investment upfront. Moving on to hiring. Consider the transferable skills that teens with limited job history have gained from their classes, extracurricular activities, and volunteer work. Young people might not know to consider these important skill building activities. Excuse me. This I find almost across the board in the young people that I work with. They have this limited view that employers only want to hear about paid job experience in an employment setting. And I always explain, employers don't care if your skills are built in a paid setting or not. Skills are skills. Even those that you learn doing things that you love, or doing hobbies, or after school activities, and you can help pull that out of them in the interview process. Consider updating your non-negotiables, such as hair color, tattoo, and piercing policies. I know of at least one large employer in Duluth that still requires natural hair color. And as an example, and that could be a somewhat dated requirement. Offer flexibility, excuse me, I'm going to offer flexibility with how and when interviews are provided. Certainly, like after school hours would be really helpful. Be willing and able to communicate via text message and or social media messaging. And I make that point because many of the youth that we work with change their phone number really frequently. So they use Facebook Messenger, for example, as a way to communicate versus texting on their phone number. And it's good to give options for communication, and maybe even ask applicants what their preferred communication method is. Teams are in high demand. Respond to applicants as quickly as possible to discuss next steps. I know this feeling as a job seeker, it can be very discouraging when you put time into your job and you don't hear anything back. So it's really smart to build in capacity for communicating where applicants are at in the process, even if it is a rejection. And to onboarding. Clarify expectations for youth that have limited work experience and may need unwritten rules spelled out for them. Soft skills. Not all workplace etiquette is common sense to everybody. Some examples that I've seen with young people are definitely related to themselves at work, communicating when they're going to take breaks. Friends and family visiting the place of business and them not realizing that that might be inappropriate, or posting about work. Recognize teens' barriers in non-job related areas such as transportation, education, care in some cases. Be prepared to offer resources and support if possible. Creating a safe space for talking about barriers can go a really long way in terms of relationship building and retention. Focus on building rapport and trust in a teenager's training period and building capacity to maintain a supportive mentorship mindset. That can be delegated to other team members to kind of serve as a mentor. It doesn't necessarily have to be just the top. Establish a culture of safe space for making mistakes, learning, and professional development from day one, and this will help create that sort of sense of support and nurturing work environment that the young people are looking for. And the last section is on retention. Assign new employees a mentor to provide ongoing support. This is something we do in our department, city, and it's actually a colleague that is your mentor. They can schedule a one-to-one on the first day to kind of welcome them, and maybe at touch points in their first few months at least. They can help in ways like making sure they have someone to eat lunch with on the first day, create that safe space for questions or expression of ideas, and clarify some of these. Early and frequent incentives are effective in retaining young employees. Consider offering recognition and incentives for employees in their first days, weeks, and months of employment. And I think this has changed from like the 6 month, say 90 day, 6 month, or 1 year incentives that might come through. You don't want to wait that long. Let's see what's next. Let young employees have a voice, provide chances to share opinions and suggestions about how things should be done. Going back to how my company treats environmental and social issues mattering to this generation, giving them space to express what's important to them goes a really long way. Not to say you have to meet their demands, but it does give an opportunity for transparency about why things are being done the way that they are. Keep teams engaged, give young employees something interesting to do, and let them take on more responsibilities, and this will help feed that need to feel like they're moving forward on a path to career progression. And create engaging perks in the workplace, such as listening to their favorite music or lunch breaks with friends. This can help create that sense of balance and help them feel less weighed down by the hustle culture that they're averse to. And joy is something that we all hope for and look for in a workplace. That's the end of the content. Now we're into experience sharing. So if anyone has any thoughts, it could also be questions. But what's gone well? What have your struggles been, and how would see yourself adapting to improve the retention of young employees? We'll open it up to the floor.
Hannah, do you prefer answering these in the chat, or would you like people to pop on video?
I'd rather brainstorm and talk out loud, if that's okay.
Yes, of course.
I can't see any of you. Maybe I'll open up my, if I can figure it out now. Oh, no. Questions in the chat are fine.
I don't really have a question, but I just want to say thank you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. I just wanted to say loads of information. I took like 3 pages of notes, and I think you're right. It isn't all on, just like everywhere we're turning, the responsibility has to be a shared street, right? We can try to meet in the middle at the very best, if not go further, right? So thank you for giving us, really good information. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, great, cool. And I don't know how many employers we have on the call, but it would be interesting to hear what some of the struggles are.
Comment in the chat from Haley. She said, as a Gen Z, I think open communication is everything, and we don't always get that through the hiring process. So I think kudos for encouraging that.
Cool. And I think, I think we've been talking about this since the millennial generation, but now that job seekers have the upper hand, employers are finally being forced to respond. And I think it's awesome. I saw this really interesting, it was probably like a BuzzFeed article of quotes from all the way back to the 1600s about how ridiculous young people are. And they were all exactly the same. Every single decade and century forever. We've always had the same kind of complaints, but I'm really happy with the direction that it's going.
Yeah, me too. I think it's exciting to just, peel back another layer and see, I've been in recruiting for a long time, so it's fun. A lot of these things are repeated themes, but just a little, slightly different spin, which is for me fun to keep up. I think.
Especially given the intersection with the diversity, equity, and inclusion goals.
Right.
Finally moving the needle on some of this stuff that we've been spinning.
Yeah.
Hannah, do you have any feedback so you talked about they're on their phone a lot. We know that. I'm on my phone a lot. And we primarily communicate through email, I would say most of the time, recruiting or scheduling interviews, paperwork. And I think that we hire all the way down to 15 as our age, but I feel like we get ghosted a lot. And I wonder if it's because they're not checking their email but we're not going to text a new employee to hire them or to do an interview. Do you have any feedback about that, or just the ghost? We get ghosted by people who aren't young people as well, but it seems to kind of be maybe that generation who doesn't want to just say, hey, I'm not interested any longer. And how many times we as an employer should reach out because maybe they just missed our communication, or if they really are done with us.
So a couple things that I do in my work readiness training with you is I do that pre-teaching kind of empathy piece where I explain what it's like from the employment side to be ghosted and how difficult it can be, just in a sort of, a kind way, just enlightening them to how hard that can be. And then I also explain in the work experience part where a lot of times when they're ghosting, it's because they're ashamed of a barrier that they're experiencing, or something happened and they didn't make it to work and they knew that they were supposed to call and they're embarrassed about that. They didn't, so then they assume that they're gonna be fired anyways, so they don't even bother. So I always explain, I want, even if you fall off the wagon, you disappear, circle back, we'll talk about it and we can, try to get through it or whatever. So I try to leave space for that. So if they do kind of mess up, you're I'm still going to be here, and reach out to me. And so I would do pre-teaching just to create that safe space, because sometimes, a lot of the youth are experiencing barriers.
Mm-hmm.
Prioritize family issues that come up more than they do work whenever there's a lot.
Yeah, life happens. Yeah. Okay. That's helpful. Thank you.
100%. Any last minute before we move on to Betsy's?
Do you have one more comment in the chat?
Yeah.
Again, Haley, that anxiety and shame for sure. Safe spaces have helped me so much. I feel more comfortable being a real life human being who has them.
Totally. Yep. And that, I think, is part of the transparency that young people probably crave and look for, is just a realness where, you might even be expressing, your own struggles, and we're all we're all in this together. I think the safe space is really, really important.
Susie, did you have something else you wanted to add?
I was just going to ask, do you think, 2 or 3 emails? I wanted to we didn't get that part of the question answered. I have that same question, Kayla. So yeah. Is multiple good, bad? Should we assume if we offer the safe space, if I can get ourselves moved to that, but if we have that, we assume that safe space is there. would multiple contacts be positive or negative, or should we assume like, hey, they saw it and that's okay? I'm okay if that's okay.
I would say 2 or 3 would be appropriate because I know that they don't see it as maybe a weird example, but like I have an email that's for junk mail and I have an email that's for professional mail. And so my inbox doesn't get so cluttered, but the young people I work with, they get so much junk mail, things just get buried. So like they might not even see that. And they're not going to go back and look just in case something comes through, whatever. So like, I would give them a few chances to see that in their inbox. And however else, a text or whatever, definitely. Because it might not be that they're ignoring it, might be that it's just getting buried.
Hannah, is there another way to communicate with young people that they prefer, like through Facebook Messenger or?
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit. Yes, I explained like they change their phone numbers frequently sometimes. So Facebook Messenger is a really common way because they always have access to that on the internet. Texting is how I communicate with mostly, but some of them only Facebook Messenger. And email is not a big draw for them, really. It'd be really tough, I think, to be an employer that does not text at this point.
So I guess that's a really big potential change in communication for employers if job offers and things are always going out by email, really shifting to like texting and Facebook Messenger as the way to communicate. That's a big change.
Yeah.
So
Sorry, did someone have
Sorry, would you recommend then having a question on your application that says preferred contact method? Like, is that what we should be doing?
100%. That's what I would do, definitely. And we made that change even for our application process. And yeah, because some can't text. They don't have the right kind of phone setup or whatever. Some will email, but they will only check their email if I text them and alert them that I sent them. That's really common. And for some reason, and I don't know why, if I send a mass text to the youth on my caseload, I'll be like, did you get my text? And they're like, I don't know if it comes through differently or if they can tell it's a group text, but they won't receive the information unless I text them singly. I don't know what the tech reason is for that, but that happened to me a few times with the students at Dental. But yeah, we have many that only.
We have a couple more comments in the chat. Kenzie said, from my perspective, reaching out at least 2 times is helpful. Gen Z is busy, so reminders help them out a lot. Sounds like that's what you're doing, Hannah. And Haley said, I say if you can text, do it. It's immediate. And what do we got? 10,000% yes. Add a preferred communication. No one can always answer calls, and you never know if things go to spam. And just to add, for participants I've worked with, one change I made actually at the beginning of the pandemic was using a Google Voice number to text. I didn't have a work-specific cell phone, and so I didn't feel comfortable texting from my personal phone, and found that to be a free and helpful tool that allows me to text clients without using my personal number.
Okay. This was fun. This is my contact information if you want to take a screenshot. I am happy to, as a public service, brainstorm any of this out with any time. And it's probably time to move on for Betsy. I'm gonna mute myself so you can't hear my beepity thing anymore. So Betsy, but I'm listening, and just give me a holler when you want me to advance the slide.
Can I ask a really quick question? I'm sorry. Oh, just LinkedIn, where I know I'm helping college kids get onto LinkedIn, but if they're not in college, are they on LinkedIn? Are they thinking about it? No, because I'm hearing Facebook's kind of phasing out. So I'm like, are they going to LinkedIn? Like, I'm not going to TikTok to find them. Like, sorry. But like, I don't know, is it like, can I switch to Instagram or is it true that Facebook is phasing out? That's kind of where my thought, maybe it was a long question, sorry.
I have heard that young people aren't using Facebook, and it's really just Facebook Messenger that I'm speaking of. They use that as their texting forum. And there are definitely platforms that I don't even understand or know that like the young people are using. We talk about it sometimes in trainings, but we're not hooked in as a program yet. Really, texting on like a cell phone number is probably the most common one, and basically you're really lost it behind if you're not doing that at this point. But those get buried too. You know, they're getting a lot more texts than we probably.
I saw the comment right here that just says they communicate very differently. And I think the thing is probably what I'm getting is just try it all a little bit, like sprinkle a little bit everywhere. See what it's. Hey, I've been through that before.
Totally. And you want to be as accessible to as many people as you possibly can. So basically do it all if you can, you know. Okay, I'm gonna mute and I'm gonna.
Thanks, Anna. Well, hello, everyone. Thanks for hanging in. I'm Betsy Hill, and I work with Hannah in our team with Duluth Workforce Development. And I serve a few different roles. I work with our adult programs. So we partner very closely with our youth and young adult programs and often kind of co-enroll people. And then I also serve as our employer navigator. And so my hope is to connect to as many employers as possible in our community to help share information about the resources that we have. And I appreciate the opportunity just kind of at the tail end of our presentation to do so. And, you know, again, as Hannah said, welcome questions. We will be sharing this PowerPoint presentation. So I know that some of these slides are a little bit small, and just know that they will be emailed out. So thanks, Chris, for doing that. So Hannah, you can move it to the next slide. We have kind of upgraded some of our handouts for employers, and this is a little snippet of them, and certainly get those to you in any format that you would like. But just as an overview, I think that unfortunately, a lot of people are not aware of the resources that are available through the public workforce system. We are, as Duluth Workforce Development, part of the Career Force location here in Duluth, and we have partners, which I'll talk about a little bit later, where we're able to provide services not just to job seekers or career changers, but to employers as well. And so if you or other employers that you're aware of are looking for help, as we know most employers are these days, to post jobs or host a hiring event, to connect to training programs, you're identifying skills that you really are not seeing in applicants and would like to talk about ways that we could perhaps create training programs to help make sure people have those skills. We have a fabulous labor market analyst. Hannah used some of his information, Carson Gorky, and he is very accessible. So if you ever are in need of data for a grant application or a presentation or information for the C-suite or whoever would like it, please feel free to reach out and we can connect you to Carson to get that great data. And, you know, as Hannah said, we're here to help. And so if you would like help just kind of strategizing, talking through what's going well, what's not, that's what we're here to do as well. We can move to the next slide. So the part of our resources, and I'm talking about recruiting ideas, you know, and Hannah talked about a few of these, but, you know, we really want to make sure that you're aware of resources that are out there that really, if you're paying into the unemployment system, you're already funding. So one of those is minnesotaworks.net. It is a website that is free for employers to post their jobs as long as you have a state or federal tax ID number. We do encourage all of our program participants to utilize minnesotaworks.net. We understand that it is a little bit of an archaic platform, and we are assured by the state that they are working on updating it. So we're eagerly anticipating that. But one of the fantastic things in minnesotaworks.net that most employers I find are not aware of is that you can do a resume search. So if you have specific skills or education, keywords really that you would like to use to try and find applicants, you can enter those in and find a list of people who have those, and then their contact information is displayed there and you can contact them directly. So I know that staffing services are a great resource, but often there's a cost associated. So this is a pool of candidates that are posting their resumes that we would encourage you to tap into if you haven't already. And you know, one of the things that we find is really just taking a bare bones approach to what is it that you really need. You know, we know that job postings and job descriptions takes a lot of time to go through them and update them. But as much as possible that you're able to kind of really look and see, you know, do we need a driver's license for this position? You know, is there anything in the position description that is making people self-select out of the hiring process for you? We know, as Hannah mentioned, that there's a lot of barriers that people have. And if they feel like, well, I'm not going to be successful, I'm not even going to try, you might be missing out on candidates that could be a great fit. So this is a lot of information, and you can certainly look at it later. And, you know, just another shout out for our diversity and inclusion employer action guide. Knowing that it's not just the right thing to do to make sure that your company is really taking a practiced eye at how you're working with those initiatives, but realizing that it's a good business sense and that those people in the workforce now that are coming into the workforce, your young talent, they want to know what you have to say about it, and having a company-wide message, I think, is really important. You can go to the next slide, Hannah. So this one gets real small, I know, and apologies for that, but again, we'll be sending it out. This is a handout that we put together. Really what we were able to do is kind of tap into the collective experience of the 50 plus counselors that work as part of Career Force. And really just from our experience, you know, what sorts of things can we share with employers who are struggling right now to make sure that, you know, we're being as helpful as possible to give you tools. And so we kind of broke it down into these 5 sections. I just kind of wanted to highlight a few. You know, in the marketing section, one thing that we really know is that the younger generation coming into the workforce responds well to videos. If your kids are anything like mine, YouTube is a huge part of their lives, or they would like it to be. It's a great way to get them to do things, I find, is to get YouTube time. But, you know, thinking about, is there a way for you to create short videos about what work is like in your organization? Is that something you could post on your website or on your Facebook page? Knowing that TikTok is probably not where you want to be, and I get that, but that there are ways to communicate these things out that are more impactful than just a written description of work. Looking at scheduling, I mean, have you, you know, really thought about the fact that if people are using public transportation, their schedule may not fit with what's currently available in your organization. Certainly single parents, you know, we know that the Duluth Public Schools doesn't offer before care. And so if your shift starts before 7:30 and a parent doesn't have someone to watch their child before school, they're going to opt out of the opportunity. So is it possible to shift times so that you can connect with a larger pool of candidates? Knowing that remote and hybrid work is expected, and that if the job makes sense for that, of course, if it's a hands-on position at a facility, that's not going to work. But if there are aspects of the job that could be done remotely, providing the opportunity for that is going to be really important in connecting to job seekers out there today. And thinking about wage strategies, you know, we know that wages aren't enough, right? Of course, you know, employers are raising wages. We've seen a lot of wage progression statewide and nationwide in the last couple of years, but things like hiring bonuses aren't always the most effective tool. You know, if you're able to invest resources in, you know, really having a clear wage progression so that individuals that come in can kind of understand, okay, I'm going to start here, but these are the things that I can do to help increase my financial benefits of working for the organization. And then really looking at those non-wage benefits as well, you know, things like a flexible schedule or more hybrid or remote time, job duties that they might prefer, having, you know, a really wide view of what makes work desirable, I think can be helpful, and it's not always about more money. We know that communication is a big piece of that as well. You know, that people will stay with a job if they make less money, if they feel appreciated and they enjoy their work and they know that their work matters. One thing too I wanted to point out is, you know, really being mindful of reducing the time gap for people to receive benefits. We know that the benefits cliff is a real thing for individuals who might be moving out of assistance into work, and being mindful of that, I think, is important. The fill the gaps part, you know, we want to make sure you're looking at your workforce and seeing who isn't there. You know, do we not have younger employees? Are we not attracting candidates from the BIPOC community? Do we not have any individuals living with disabilities working for us? You know, and how can we make sure we're directly reaching out to those groups and making our workplace a friendly and welcoming environment for them to not just come into, but to stay with? And then part of that as well is considering background checks and things like drug testing. We know that, you know, there's a lot of changes going on statewide with legalizing marijuana products. And I think the feedback we're hearing from job seekers is that that is another self-select piece out. We know that's not always within an employer's capacity to change, but to just be mindful of how you're communicating. And the last piece, you know, we really encourage you to reach out to CareerForce. We have a lot of resources available to help with innovative strategies, things like providing internships. We have programs that, you know, if everything is a fit, we can fund the wages for the participants in the internship. Hannah's work with the youth program, they do a lot of hiring through the summer and all throughout the year, where the City of Duluth Workforce Development is the employer. So we're paying the wages, FICA, work comp, and the work site is providing that supervision and support and learning. And we really want to make sure you're thinking about on-the-job training, things like apprenticeship type work development, where that work, earn, learn model, and there are resources to help. So, Hannah, if you want to advance the slide. I can't have you here without telling you a little bit about our resources. So if you want to move the slide forward, I have just some snippets of a few of the funding resources that we have. Just to note, in the top right corner, it mentions Duluth Workforce Development, JET and AUA, which are JET and AUA part of our partnership at CareerForce. So it's not just our agency that has these resources, but we always want to make sure we're promoting them. The talent development program is something that has really been well received. And this is kind of, to me, falls under one of those non-wage benefits. If you're looking for ways to offer professional development to your staff, things like leadership training, the talent development program can be a great tool to help offset the cost of that. And as you can maybe see, it's a pretty small slide. There is somewhat of a match requirement. Often the employer's portion of the requirement is satiated by if they're paying the employees their wages during the training. So we're really excited to talk to employers about that if you're interested. On the job training is something that we can fund through our employment and training programs. So if an individual comes to you and maybe they don't have everything that you're looking for on your wish list, they maybe have not as much experience or education as you're ideally looking for, but you feel that this is a person that could be a good fit, what we encourage you to do is put maybe a day pause on the hiring process. If that person can connect to us, we can quickly screen them to see if they're eligible for any of our grant programs. If they are, we can quickly create an agreement with you as an employer. And if all fits together, we can reimburse you for half of their wage during an initial training. So it's an underutilized tool, but a really helpful tool. And we know that employers right now are hiring a lot of people that they're doing more training than ever for, and would love to be able to help with resources to offset the cost of that. I'm going to go to the next slide. These are a couple of programs not specific to the city, but I wanted to make sure you're aware of. The Pipeline program is through the Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry. It's a very exciting program that can basically help you turn an opportunity into more of that apprenticeship model. it provides up to $6,000 per employee for specific training costs. So for instance, we have an employer who had recently expressed an interest in doing a tuition reimbursement program for their employees to gain skills and credentials. And we were able to connect them to the pipeline program. And it looks like that it's going to work for them to be able to receive pipeline funding in lieu of the tuition assistance they were initially going to be budgeting for out of their own budget. So it's an exciting program, and we're again happy to help connect you to it. And the work opportunity tax credit, I always want to make sure we're talking to employers about this. It's a federal tax credit that is available for employers who hire individuals within, I believe there's 8 different target groups. So it's a very simple process. You fill out a piece of paperwork with them when you hire them, send it in to the IRS within 28 days of that hire date, and then you're eligible for a tax credit. And it is anyone that maybe is receiving public assistance, if they've been incarcerated, if they're a wounded veteran. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that people could be eligible for this, but there's not as many employers taking advantage of it. And last slide, so we're running out of time here. These are our partners. So, oops, sorry, there was one before, I think. So there's several of us that are employer navigators. Thanks, Anna. And I'm just one of them. And so these are my colleagues within our Career Force partnership. And no matter where you're at in northern Minnesota or even outside, so these are national programs, we're happy to help connect you to the resources. So thank you.
Perfect. Betsy and Hannah, thank you so much for being here. We're right at noon, so we're going to go ahead and close it out. But if you both could stay back for another few minutes to see if there's any additional questions, that would be really helpful. But thank you all for joining us this afternoon. We appreciate the sponsorship from Lake Superior College, of course. And I hope this was helpful in enhancing your workforce and tapping into this underutilized demographic. So thank you both, and I hope you all have a really nice afternoon.
Thank you.